Hi, everyone. My name is Dean Chandler, and we're about to get started here with the third installation of TVP Talks, which is a fun little roundtable series we've been doing here at TheViewPoint to sort of gather together experts in the field of CTV, OTT, demand, supply, and measurement. And I wanted to welcome you all to this one. So my name is Dean Chandler. I head up business development for TheViewPoint. If those of you that aren't familiar with TheViewPoint, we are a SaaS-based ad monetization platform for publishers strictly in the CTV OTT space. And the topics we'll be covering are CTV and OTT specific. So if you're looking to figure out how to monetize a 728 by 90 on a blog or text links, those are all great endeavors, but this might not be one for you unless you're looking to make the jump into the streaming space. If anyone has any questions about how we connect demand partners to publishers and how we clean up the path optimization between that demand and that supply, please reach out to myself or one of the colleagues that are joined us here, and we'd be happy to talk about how we can be a solution for you guys. As I mentioned, this is our third, and this one will be covering measurement in CTV. So hopefully, those of you that join us here today will get a sense of what you can do with what you learned today. Hopefully, if this will inspire some questions, and you can reach out to the panelists here and of course me for any of the answers that we may or may not have. Since we are going to be talking about CTV ad measurement and sort of data and attribution here, we're going to be taking on sort of the three-dimensional chess aspect of advertising, as we've sort of split the DNA of linear and digital here to come together into this CTV space, this OTT streaming demand and supply. I think we've sort of created this new beast that we all have now that we're staring at and looking at, and so I think it's going to be important to bring in some experts to figure out what we can do with this as a industry and what you guys can do with this individually. And so those beautiful faces in front of you are those experts of which I spoke. So let's meet them. The attractive gentleman with the beard there is Aaron Grote. After 6 years as a Marine and a decade as a leader in the hospitality industry, Aaron is transitioned to a career as a digital marketer and strategist because being a Marine, I guess, wasn't hard enough. Today he works for the identity and marketing services company Stirista as Senior Director of Identity and Attribution Products. There, he and his team build and operate the CTV First DSP AdStir, as well as a host of targeting and attribution tools that help its users deliver outstanding marketing results. So it's fair to say that Aaron works with the demand side and working with buyers to make the most out of every ad dollar they spend. On who do they spend it on? Well, ideally publishers like Philo, and that brings us to Aulden Kaye, who is the Director of Advertising Partnerships there at Philo. Aulden, beyond being the proud mother of an 8-month-old, is the Director of Advertising Partnerships there at Philo, and she contributes to Philo's current and future advertising strategy. So good luck with that. She works closely with Philo's top-tier demand partners to drive innovation and visibility for Philo's advertising capabilities with a focus on delivering best-in-class programmatic solutions. Let's repeat that, best-in-class programmatic solutions within Philo's premium OTT environment. Previously, Aulden was the Director of Advanced TV at MediaMath. Next to her is Reid Mitnick, Director of US Sales at BidMind DSP. Reid is the Director of US Sales for BidMind DSP. He has the smoothest voice this side of CTV OTT with over 20 years of ad tech and media sales experience. Reid has led both startups and Fortune 500 companies with an expertise in cutting-edge advertising ecosystems. I encourage all of you to reach out to Reid because he's a wealth of knowledge across the expanse of this entire universe, so please do so. Last, but of course not least, David Wiesenfeld, who is the lead strategist at TransUnion. You may know them as formerly as TrueOptic. David has over 25 years of experience in consulting, strategy development, product management, and business analytics. He is currently lead strategist within TransUnion's media and entertainment vertical, responsible for thought leadership, industry analysis, and market strategy development. Dave joined TransUnion with the acquisition of TrueOptic in 2020 and has served as chief strategist since 2014 at TrueOptic. Needless to say, David also has a wealth of knowledge, and to make that happen, we're going to start with him, and we're going to bring some questions to him first. So, David, give us a big picture here. Sort of, I like having these things as context. We're in context, and we're going to start sort of with the premise of the beast I spoke of, the TV / digital beast. As the man with all the answers, the man sitting on piles of data, let's start with the basics. What are the ad measurement differences between linear TV and CTV?
Yeah, well, thanks, Dean. Thanks for the intro. Thanks for the invite, and thanks for everybody who's listening in. Yeah, so there's pretty large differences between what you would like to have as measurement solution for CTV and advanced TV relative to traditional TV, and it really has to do with sort of the digital nature of it. So connected TV, OTT, linear addressable TV for that matter, are really very highly targetable, right? They're one-to-one targetable. It's sort of impression level decisioning as opposed to traditional TV where you were making program buys on the big 3 or 5 networks, historically, well in advance. And so it was okay to have kind of a smaller base of consumers whom you were reading ratings off of to sort of support these sort of mass gross level decisions. But for those of you who remember your statistics, the smaller the thing you're trying to measure, the larger the sample you need. So when we're talking about connected TV measurement, there's really 3 things that you want, 3 inherent features of a system. One is massive scale, right? You want to be able to see as many people and devices as you possibly can, because you can decision on that. But you can send a different commercial to Reid than to Aaron even if they're watching the same program at the same time. So you've got to be able to have that scale, that granularity. That means scale. The second and perhaps most important thing is accuracy, right? You've got to be sure that all these different devices that people are using to watch connected TV, to stream TV, it's not just the set-top box or an antenna anymore, are connected to the right person or household. Really, TV is typically a household-based medium, and the average household has about a dozen or so streaming-capable devices. So the real challenge of a lot of this is, besides having all the people and all the households, is to be able to connect the devices to the people accurately. If you don't do that, obviously your measurement is going to be wrong, and all the downstream things you try to do, attribution and so forth, are going to be off. So that's really key. And it's kind of the difference between, anybody can kind of read, can sort of track impressions across the stuff. You can tag the ads, you'll see, there's 10,000 impressions, but it's sort of the difference between knowing there's 10,000 pieces in the puzzle and actually putting the puzzle together. And that's really what you need to be able to do. And so identity is sort of the I word, is right, a big part of this, where you can correctly associate devices to people. That's what identity does. So that's a big part of this. So second thing is accuracy. You want scale, you want accuracy. And the third thing you want is what, we often just call completeness. You want all the devices. So, a lot of the solutions out there are partial, right? They see connected TVs or smart TVs, but they don't integrate mobile phones or laptops, which still account for, double-digit share of OTT viewing. And if you miss that, you're going to miss impressions. You're going to miss, things that might lead to conversions if you're looking at attribution. So you want, all the people and all the devices that you can possibly get close to census level. And you want those people and devices accurately associated to the right unit, household in this case. So it's scale, accuracy, completeness. That's what you want. And it's very different from sort of the 30,000 household panel that would report, every next day. So very different in that respect.
It's not enough to just know that 30,000 people out there are watching Welcome Back, Kotter anymore, is it?
I think it's less than that now, but
right.
But if you're doing it, that's good.
Whatever it takes. But a follow up on that, and the mantra that you and I had talked about before, you mentioned accuracy, and what does that mean? Is that what happens if you bring bad data in? You get what?
Yeah, well, and nowhere is this truer than it is the old garbage in, garbage out sort of, mantra, truer than in connected TV, particularly when it comes to attribution, right? When people are doing this. So, the worst thing would be to sort of think about how attribution is done. Usually comparing people who saw the ad to the group that didn't see the ad. But if you're not getting the devices accurately associated to the people who do the buying or the households that do the buying, you can wind up with not just missing people who saw the ad, so your exposure group doesn't have everybody that it should, but more sort of, damagingly is the fact that people who saw the ad wind up in your group of people who didn't see it because you thought that smart TV belonged to the household across the street, when in fact it belonged to the household that saw the ad. And so you wind up sort of inflating what, the conversion or the conversion behavior of your baseline group, because some of them actually saw the ad because your accuracy is wrong. And you deflate the conversion behavior, the opportunity for conversion among those who did see the ad, because some of those people wind up as households that, because of misattribution of devices, they're actually households that didn't see the ad. So you wind up collapsing the difference and sort of typically underreporting, the value of your connected TV advertising because your device, your device assignment to people is wrong. So you really want to get that right.
Great. So with that, I'm going to actually jump to Reid and Aaron. I'm going to ask you guys, and you guys can flip a coin to see who goes with this first. But assuming it's good in, good out, assuming that you've worked with David and you have all the data you need and it's basically correct, what sort of metrics, do you and your clients use to track the results of these ad campaigns? And Reid, what about secondary devices and metrics and measuring a CTV campaign against those things, those other devices that David just talked about?
Yeah, that's a good point. And one thing that we've been working with our clients a lot is you kind of get into that little gray area of, when you're targeting, digital or the phone, it's a one-to-one. Whereas when you're targeting CTV, it could be the entire household. You're still targeting that head of household. So as a specific example, if you have that device ID and you're targeting a soccer mom, say with a minivan, when you're targeting on a phone or on another mobile device, you're really just targeting that mom. But when you're creative on a CTV ad, they might be watching programming on, say, Philo. You're targeting both the mom, right? Utility of the minivan, but the child might want to know, you have to sell the child on the coolness factor or other technology within the minivan. So you're creative on a CTV ad, might be a little bit different than the creative on a display ad on a phone or, something, similar to that. So we're always looking at kind of, that on a creative standpoint, but also the secondary metrics. For instance, when someone is watching on-demand connected TV, the odds of them, flipping to a different channel is a lot less than when they're watching traditional linear TV. There's also data that we've seen that something like 92% of people are actively on their mobile device while streaming. So we've, relayed that to our clients, in the data we provide, and said, you probably should have an audio component very high on the list within your actual commercial, because that person while streaming might have their head down, on Twitter or on Snapchat while they're consuming that streaming. So make sure you have an audio component. And we also stress to have maybe a QR code on the end card of an ad. So someone that's on their phone can just snap an offer. And we do work with a lot of, local advertisers that, streaming is their first foray into, TV. So they are looking at more of, that end result of in-store visits or things like that. So that's the data that we kind of, go through with our clients.
Aaron, same question to you. What sort of metrics do you guys, and it can vary by publisher, by account, right? So talk to us.
Yeah, so when we're talking about measurement and attribution, I kind of think of those as two different things, right? And where measurement is helping, us as the platform, as the buying platform, as the managed services provider, just make sure that we're getting in front of real people in quality contexts. When we're talking about attribution, which is what we try to keep the main focus when we're facing a client, is we really try to keep attribution focused on the business results, right? And we try to design that in a way where there's really not a question about whether this worked. And so we will layer, kind of going back to David's identity points. Those are really key for us, right? At Stirista, at its heart, as a data company, we have all of our targeting, our buying, and our measurement and attribution on one, foundational data set. And so we're as well positioned as anyone to do identity-based matching. And that's really important to us, but we also understand that it's important to take a trust but verify approach to, one-to-one measurement. And so we'll also work with buyers to structure campaigns so that, we're able to detect and report lift, show how that correlates with the matchback reporting, with the identity that we're providing with the matchback to identity reporting that we're providing through as attribution, and just kind of tie that all up. So measurement, as a platform, as an inventory facing thing, that's for us to care about. Business results, that's for the client to care about.
And just to add to I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, David, go ahead.
I was going to add to Aaron's point. One of the challenges relative to digital for, kind of Connect TV is basically digital, but relative to other digital, desktop and mobile, right, is the device, the television typically isn't used for conversion behavior, right? I mean, usually if it's a mobile phone or laptop, it's that same device that's often used to go to a website or make an e-commerce purchase, or the mobile phone is used to track a visit to a retail store. And, those types of conversion are sort of tied to the same devices the ad was served on. But in Connect TV, that's not the case. So, again, just underscores, and I think even more so to Aaron's point for attribution, the importance of getting those device to people connections, nailed down.
Yeah, and that Reid alluded to that too, where that second screen is so important, and that's one thing we love, frankly, because we can do those view through matchback attributions across devices, and it actually gives a more complete picture of campaign performance. Sometimes it takes a little bit of communication, right, to get people comfortable with that. The media buyer comes in and wants to do CTV, brings in the BI or analytics point of contact, and they tell us about their UTM-based last click attribution model. That requires a conversation. But once you get past that, it really opens a lot of doors.
Right. But you don't get to a second screen unless you have a first screen, right? And so Aulden, as one of the largest, smartest CTV OTT publishers in the space, where do we sit as a publisher? What's the role there? Yeah, I'll just end it there without stumbling over myself. What is the role? How do you play in this? How do you play with all of this?
So it's been so great actually to listen to David and Reid and Aaron talk about sort of how they're using the data, because I think from our perspective, so I'll take a step back and just say Philo as a service, we're virtual MVPD. And so the service looks a lot like traditional TV. We've got live linear streaming networks. That's where we see 85% of our viewing. And it's, programmers like Viacom and Discovery and A&E and AMC. Sort of things that we're all familiar with from a traditional TV perspective, but we are a streaming platform, and so all of our impressions are addressable. And so when we were, setting up our advertising business, we had a lot of conversations on the demand side and, with partners in the ad tech community. And we sort of landed on this concept of realizing that, with such a fragmented landscape, we wanted to sort of make addressability and measurement of impressions on Philo as simple is the wrong word, but as simple as possible. And so basically our ad business is nearly 100% programmatic. And we really look at programmatic not just as being a sales strategy, but being something that to enable this addressability and the measurement, not just on Philo, but across the connected TV ecosystem. And so to that end, we're passing through a bunch of different signals in our bid requests. We're passing through client-side device ID and IP address for customers who've not opted out of that. And that, I think helps to make these connections that are sort of feeding the identity graphs and feeding the sort of decisions and connections that, Reid and Aaron are able to make on the DSP side. And then in addition to that, we basically, because we are, so many of our campaigns are running programmatically, we recognize that our advertisers are going to want to work with a lot of different partners, and that there are different partners who are bringing different data sets and different solutions. And so we're sort of in this place where we have stayed agnostic. We say, bring whatever data and measurement you want. And we just sort of want to enable that.
Right. And so then also just back to you, Aulden, you work sort of hand in glove with these DSPs or whomever is bringing the potential partner to you, ad partner to you, to sort of execute the best plan possible, I would assume, and open your inventory up to whatever data they want, right?
Yeah, I mean, and we're also working closely with, we work closely with SSPs like you guys.
Right.
We do work closely with, we are integrated with some data partners. We, are integrated with TrueOptic. And so we're having conversations to try to enable the best version of whatever it is our clients are trying to achieve via all of our partners. But again, like we're sort of open to all, because we recognize that that's the way that a lot of different clients working with a lot of different people. And we just sort of, we don't want to be like, there is, we don't see there being one solution or one measurement of record at this time in this space. And so we just want to make sure that whatever people are using, we are available for that.
God, bless Philo. I mean, that's a great approach. And I think, one of the big challenges, and this is a whole separate webinar, so we won't get too into that unless, Dean, you want to, but it's the challenge of, as it comes to whether it's measurement or targeting, is fragmentation, right? I mean, there's so many different kind of silos of inventory, and they don't all connect to the same data sets for targeting. They certainly don't all connect to the same measurement solutions on the back end or activation solutions. So, it makes it another layer of challenge, and kind of, again, it's kind of back to identity, the ability to kind of stitch these things together across silos. But what's happening is that, a lot of some of the larger pockets of inventory of connected TV that are owned by some of the device manufacturers or some of the publishers, sort of walling themselves off and creating their own solutions and kind of getting away with that. I mean, doing well now because, it's such a fragmented environment that, hey, if I can buy, this device and these two publishers and get 40% of the space, that's relatively simple and relatively good coverage compared to, the long tail. And so, what's ultimately, it makes measurement and targeting a challenge. And, ultimately, and there's some other initiatives going on in the space, attempts to sort of break down these silos, because the complexity of it all is keeping a lot of money out of the system. It's like some of the buyers just don't want to deal with that. And so, or they can't deal with it, or they can't spend as much as they'd like to spend. And so, Philo is one of the leaders in terms of just having an open approach to this and trying to, I think, recognizing it's kind of a paradox of the commons, right? It's like, hey, if we do well and can help everybody else do well in our space and help our clients, work across, both work with us and our competitors, that's better for us and it's better for everybody. And not everybody's got that attitude. So, it's sort of this ongoing evolution of the space. But in the meantime, the fragmentation is a challenge, for measurement and targeting as well.
Well, that was one of the things I wanted to ask. It was a loaded question I was going to ask, which is there a universal measurement platform? The answer is no, right? But should there be? And then how possible would that be if there should be? Right? Because now we're talking about an alpha, which has to incorporate all walled gardens. So I guess we sort of, David, you've led us in sort of into this space of not having universal measurement. So and then there's this crush of data points for attribution, for measurement to get to attribution, which can be dizzying. So I'm going to combine two thoughts, and I'm going to go to Aaron and Reid to help us out here. With no universal measurement platform, what's the right mix of measurement data, and how do you adopt your strategy to make those data informed decisions? Client by client, you can pick one. If you don't like the question, you can answer the one you wish was asked, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, to be frank, I don't spend a lot of time wishing for something that's just not going to happen. So we assume noise, right? Our clients, they're going to be doing multiple things at a time, and if it happens to be that they're doing multiple things in TV, whether that's linear or streaming, it's not that different to us than if they were also doing, paid search, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, yeah, it is useful. It is helpful to do the best you can to manage TV frequency, but also you have frequency occurring in other channels. So we assume noise. We're communicative with our clients to do what we can to coordinate with them on frequency, but we assume noise. We build our measurement and attribution approaches to a given campaign or client, assuming that noise, so that we can thrive and we can show incremental marketing causality even within this imperfect system.
If any of you had incremental marketing causality on your bingo card, please check it off. Great one. That's what you come here for, folks. Reid, sort of the same idea, same question to you. If you have the same answer, that's fine.
I'll say, well, first of all, my answer to universal measurement is a big fat no, and I hope there is a big fat no. And I think the fact that we call it CTV sometimes inhibits, and we try to shoehorn it to TV and try to take what linear TV does and try, all right, we need to chase TV dollars, when in fact, streaming as a whole is so much more than just traditional TV. It's
a great point.
It's gaming, it's music, it's, for my kids do their homework through streaming. So why do we need to measure it like we measure TV, just to chase TV dollars? There's so much more opportunity and better things that can be done. So that's why my answer to that is always and has been a big fat no to the universal measurement.
You're a true trailblazer and pioneer. No, everyone likes to sort of pivot from the norm, right? And so maybe I guess that's what we try to understand based on what we've learned from the past. But that's why we have a generation of your kids and our kids to not do that. David, do you have a thought?
Well, I just think, if you think about, traditional TV, how that was measured, and there was a currency, right? The Nielsen ratings, they kind of had to be, right? I mean, it was you were measuring very large things, programs over sort of a longer period of time. And, it worked for that, right? Panel work, and panels are really expensive to build and maintain. And you're not going to have 100 companies doing that. It just wouldn't work out economically for those doing it. I don't know if all people saw yesterday, Bill Ibbett, who's the president of ComScore, put out an open letter to the industry, sort of positioning ComScore as the new company that's going to produce the currency for the new TV. And I like Bill, and ComScore, I think it's a really good company. I just don't think that there is a need or even a want for that sort of control of the space. It's not necessary or even practical. I mean, I think, you want some best practices, you want some valid measurement, but the fact that I think that measurement is sort of separating out into sort of two parts is kind of the identity part. Let's get the right device to people connection, which is a different set of competencies than the sort of typical methodological data manipulation, PhD statistical stuff that defines measurement. So you want to be able to get the right data. It's back to garbage in, garbage out, and getting that right data in is sort of a different competency than the typical measurement company has. It's about experience with handling big data sets and doing a lot of data matching and, working with identity and so you kind of, I believe you can shake out with, some number of companies that are really good at that, who provide that core data that like high quality data you need to input, and then some measurement companies who can tap into that, who are really good at sort of analytics and reporting, and they'll be able to sort of work on that. Or it could just even be agencies and publishers to do it direct. And I think as long as there's sort of again, good data going in and some consistency to that data, you don't need just one company to be the arbiter of that or the reporter of that.
Right. Aulden, back to you on this to wrap this point up. But what would be, we're not talking about universal measurement or anything like that here, but what would be the wish list when you sit with somebody and sit with a DSP or a brand or agency that wants to apply data and run across the VMVPD that is Philo? What's your wish list? What do you hope that they bring, or how much information they hope that they bring?
I mean, I think it really depends on what they're looking to achieve too. Like, another part of this is that every client is bringing a different set of KPIs. Now we're not just looking about like delivery against a particular demo or gross rating points like we were in linear. We have clients looking for lots of different things. So, I mean, we have set up the tools to be able to bring anything in from different third-party data sets to clients' first-party data sets and, forecast against those and get a sense of what will work and what won't work. I mean, I think with CTV also, like, it always needs to be a conversation, because while everything is addressable, I think to all of the points that everyone's made about, data quality, but also household, and, there's a lot of different matching of data sets going on. And so you also sort of need to bring the types of data that's going to scale in CTV. I think that's a really different conversation than with a lot of other advertising. And then the last thing I would say is, there are things beyond, there are a lot of different versions of addressability. Another thing that we're passing through in our bid request, we pass through a number of different contextual signals, like genre, which is coming from our Grace Note data, from our guide data. And so I think, there are some things that are left over from traditional TV that maybe don't work as well in CTV, like, day parting and stuff like that, because obviously when someone's watching on demand, that's a good time to be advertising to them, regardless of the time of day. But with things like genre and rating and other types of contextual signals, you can look at performance and break it out by those things. And that's sort of like making an old idea new again, and looking at it from a different perspective than just, household level or person level in like a more demographic sense. And so I think, it's also just, I guess, having an open mind to what all of the different possibilities are with the data that we're passing through on the publisher side, and being able to work together on that. That's
fantastic. So I'm going to take a question from the audience, if you guys don't mind, and it's going to be a jump ball, but it actually speaks to something. So we're only as good as the brand partners we work with, and vice versa. And so brands, Reid, you're a maverick, so you're already playing 4-dimensional chess on this one. But if they're talking about brand lift from a CTV campaign and they have that expectation, what's the best way to convey positive KPI for brand lift on a CTV OTT streaming fast campaign? Aulden, do you have any thought on that? Does anyone have a thought on that they want to lead with? Go ahead. You and Hale.
Just that I know that there are a number of vendors out there who do work on this, who have their own panels. We've seen a number of those come through in terms of like Lucid and Kantar and people who are focused specifically on this problem. So the short answer would just be yes. I feel like there is a way to address it, and that there are companies that are focused on that.
I would just add that I think where it's kind of going is that much like what I think is happening in mobile and desktop, that you kind of want these systems to kind of be tied together. I mean, there's not a separation anymore between the targeting data and the measurement data. It's the same data, and so you want to really kind of be able to kind of in near real time, and at least within the context of the campaign, the duration, to be able to optimize off this stuff. So if you learn that it's not just about attribution saying, from a ROI perspective of planning, this worked, or this worked better than this other thing, but it's sort of making things better on the fly. So hey, if this particular publisher is working better, this target segment, or this this program, or whatever it is, you can use your attribution in the context of the campaign in real time to be able to optimize that decisioning and be able to sort of use it on the fly. And I think that so it's connecting your measurement to your activation and targeting is, I think, the key, or the way to get the most value out of measurement in a kind of digital environment. And I think that's where we'll start to see it go.
You know, the attribution will definitely get better. As the way people watch CTV, as you know, it started more as the Netflix, you know, on demand, whereas more and more people are using it as a cable TV replacement and watching more live sports, live events, things like that. And it's easy to track attribution when someone's watching in real time as opposed to, you know, watching a 45-minute show on demand. So I think as the viewing habits of the watchers shift to that, and more cord cutters, we'll see better attribution.
Aaron, to you, because you were smart enough earlier in the conversation to delineate between measurement and attribution. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I mean, you use the words, you know, brand lift, and so when we're looking at are people looking to drive, you know, conversions or consideration? Consideration is a really good target, right? And you know, it's in a way it's almost easier to look at conversions. So, but looking at consideration, brand lift, we always work as hard as we can to find the data sources our clients have, right? There's actually a lot of tools. People are underestimating how many data sources they have available to measure brand lift. And so we'll work with them to get, you know, look at like Google Analytics, their website traffic, but even things like Google Search Console, Google Trends, right? These are all readily available sources of information that are all kind of filling in that consideration, that research stage of that phase of that funnel. That's what a lot of people are looking for right now. And so we'll combine that with, you know, your classical, you know, one-to-one match back attribution to really give them a layered understanding of, hey, all of these things are kind of going in this direction at this vector. They're in agreement that that means you can feel confident about making this assertion about this campaign's impact on brand lift. But one thing that I think we forget about a lot when we're trying to measure something like brand lift is creating an environment, creating a campaign structure where it will be detectable, right? And one big difference between buying CTV and buying linear is the decisions it doesn't force you to make. You know, buying linear, you almost had to decide where you were going to show this ad, right? Because you're picking stations, right? And so CTV doesn't make you do that. It's great that it's people-centric. It's great that it's addressable to the household level. But the decisions it doesn't force you to make can limit your ability to drive detectable lift in things like brand, consideration or brand, brand sentiment. So we make sure to kind of reintroduce that into our conversations during the campaign planning phase. We don't have to think about geography, but we probably should, right? We want to achieve a spend density in a given area where some of these non-identity signals live, so that we can use, region or metro area to detect an incremental lift in website visit or an incremental lift in branded searches in Google Search Console.
That's a great point.
Just because you don't have to make a decision doesn't mean you shouldn't.
So are you telling me then, after all of this and the arc-sized amount of data that we have to play with, it's just going to come down to geo, DMA, gender, and HHI in age?
Yeah, that would be funny. Yeah, so we definitely use lift as a layer, right? So we like to use identity-based attribution to directly match signals. But then we like to layer that with a lift analysis so that we can use the attribution to get to incrementality. And those two together will kind of reinforce each other, add confidence to the ultimate inference, which is we drove lift or we drove conversions this much.
Right. So I have a question, one last question, then we're going to wrap this up. For an agency focused on performance-based solutions, how would OTT CTV be best utilized and measured? I'll repeat that again. For an agency focused on performance-based solutions, how would OTT CTV be best utilized and measured?
I mean, I would just jump in and say, obviously you want to start with what it is you're trying to measure. Is it website visit? Is it a retail visit? Is it an online purchase, an offline purchase? What constitutes conversion or, but then kind of work back from that, because, all these data sets are connectable. Like, it is a little harder, as we said earlier, in OTT, because you're not using the TV set. Most OTT is watched on a large screen TV, to go in 99.9% of the cases, the TV is not used to make the conversion behavior, right? You're using a different device. But whatever that device is, or whatever data set you're using, it could be, loyalty card data from a supermarket and it's a mayonnaise ad, those data sets are connectable. And they're both large, right? Your loyalty card data is at a household level, your connected TV data is at a household level. I would just recommend, think about it in advance, talk to your measurement or identity provider, or whoever it is you're buying the data from, buying the inventory from, and just figure out a way to do it. And there are ways. I mean, these data sets can be connected, and and you can do this one-to-one kind of closed loop. This household saw it and they did or they didn't buy it, or they did or they didn't visit the website, quite readily. But it's just making sure that in advance that you have a system in place to set up and execute those matches and do the analysis.
Right. I have one more from the audience, and we'll bow out of here. What is the role or major role of IP address and an ad tag? Why is it very important while calling ad tags? I'm going to try to work through that again. What is the major role of IP address and an ad tag? So is IP address a major measuring point? I believe is what Jitendra is trying to ask. But anybody have a thought on IP address as in an ad tag? And is it a major player?
Yes.
Right. As we talked about, right? Because because that represents geo and then also represents sort of household all at the same time, right?
Yeah, IP address is often used because it connects. It's a good way to connect all the devices in that household are running off that router. Are going. If you have the IP address, you can kind of. There's more to it than that, because people don't always visit other people's houses, and then some of the identity solutions don't filter that out. With IPv6, those of you into that's more technical side of it coming, the IP address is going to be more dynamic. It's going to change more quickly. Different devices within the same household will have different addresses. So it becomes another layer of difficulty to that. But, but right now IP address is one of the more commonly used identifiers because of its ability to link back all the house devices in a household. And then whatever you know about that household can be ascribed to those devices.
Right. It's almost at the top of the taxonomy of a household, right? In a way.
Yeah, from a digital standpoint, yeah.
Sure. All right. Well, we'll stop it there. I think we've sort of run out of time. And so with that, I want to thank my panel of experts. You guys blow my mind every time I talk to you, and you continue to do so in this 45 minutes we've had together. And then if by any means, if anyone that is engaged in the audience has a question or wants to reach out to any of the folks here, any of the experts here to lean on them, then please reach out to them directly via LinkedIn, or you can reach out to me and I can get you in touch with them. I want to thank all of our the people that joined in today in our audience. Thank you for engaging in the conversation. Hopefully you gleaned something positive out of it. Ideally, you now have more questions and sharper questions, and when you came in here and you sort of have a path to success for whatever it is you're doing. For David, Aaron, Aulden, and Reid, this is Dean Chandler signing off. Thank you guys so much, and have a great rest of your week. Talk to everyone soon. Be well.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.